morning, everyone. We're a little spread out. Would anybody mind to come in a little more so we can have a really good Q&A session? And we're all family here. Let's just bring it all in. Thank you.
I don't like
Great. So welcome everyone. My name is Dana Healy. I'm one of the newer board members of MassAccess. I'm really excited for this particular session. We will be talking with Neil Golden and Les Goldstein from ESC about strategic planning objectives to improve operations, primarily for community access television. So Neil Golden is an ESC consultant since 2002. He's worked with nonprofit clients ranging from 100,000 all the way up to 70 million. So he works in the areas of organizational change, board development, strategic management, and marketing. Some of his recent clients have been New TV, Grub Street, New Center for Arts and Culture, and the Bostonian Society. He also works as also serves as the interim COO of the Jewish Community Center of Greater Boston. So he brings 25 years of management experience to this organization, so we're very excited to have him here. Les Goldstein was most recently the CEO of Ascentus Corporation, a provider of human capital management services such as payrolls, benefits, human resources, time management, recruiting. He was also the CEO of Interpay, the 5th largest payroll company, before it was sold to Paychex. He brings 30 years of experience to ESC, and we are very excited to have them here with us. So let's give them a round of applause.
This works. Before we get started, I'd like to get a sense of where people are. How many of you have worked on a strategic planning process? Great, okay. And in your organizations, how many of you have a strategic plan? So let me understand this. A lot of you have worked on a process, but it didn't result in a plan? Okay. Let's talk about, give me a second, we'll work out the mechanics. Okay, success. So what are the objectives of the talk today? And part of it is to really describe what a strategic plan really will do for you, because it's a ton of work, as many of you know. On the other hand, it will save you time in the long run, and it will help you in a lot of ways. And at least amongst the ESC consultants, we've all bought very expensive strategic plans. When somebody says, do you have a strategic plan? The answer is yes. You reach to the bookcase, you blow off the dust and say, here it is. That's not a good strategic plan. A strategic plan really is an effective document that guides you during your day-to-day and year-to-year operation. And we'll describe what that is. So, one of the objectives today is to raise the importance and understanding of strategic planning. And in preparation for today, we did a little bit of math, and ESC has worked with a dozen organizations, which resulted in actually multiple engagements. Many clients come back and have asked us either to do additional work, or in some cases, they've executed the first strategic plan we did to ask us to revise it to go for the next period. So, in thinking about you guys, one of the questions I thought you might have is, why bother with a strategic plan? Things are going okay. And, we're getting the payroll done, and we're making some progress, so why bother with this? So we'll address that question. The other one is, and many people don't realize it. Your biggest asset is your time. It's not just money. And so one of the questions you might have is, gee, a strategic plan is interesting, I just don't have time for it. So the question is, how can we design a process that will give you the time to do a strategic plan, which will actually save you time later on? And the other one, which people say is, you know, predicting the future is really difficult. In fact, it's much better after the fact. The only thing I know about a strategic plan is that it's long in some ways. And you just have to wrap your mind around it. But the basic ideas are really sound, and they'll help guide you. So don't get hung up on, will it be exactly this or exactly that? So one of the things we'll discuss is some of the changes that may impact cable access TV. And again, it's the same caveat. There are lots of things, there's a lot of dynamics happening in the marketplace. Frankly, I don't know which one's going to actually happen. But I know that something will happen. There are a lot of people putting in lots of effort that are highly motivated to come up with a solution. Because everything I've read says that the customers of cable are really dissatisfied with the size of their bills. So somebody's going to solve that problem somehow. You know, we thought it might be Aero. Unfortunately, that didn't quite pan out. But there might be something else coming down the pipe. And Les is going to discuss some of your HR needs and some of the resources that are available to you. One of the other ground rules, by the way, is please feel free to ask a question when you have it, because we don't want you to forget it, and making the session interactive helps us understand what is you guys need out of this session. So, first is, who are we? Who's ESC and why are we here? ESC is a over 30-year-old organization, and we're a not-for-profit, just like you guys. All of the consultants, Les, myself, and the 140 of our colleagues are senior executives who volunteer their time to work with the not-for-profits so that we can help you become more effective at whatever it is that you're trying to do. We were talking about it earlier, but the way we get paid is by making a difference. So we're highly motivated to make a difference in your organization so that you can be better at what you're doing. We always work in teams, and there are a number of reasons for that. The most important is that each of us has our own communication style. People on your side have different communication styles. We want to make sure that we have a team that can communicate with everyone on your side, and also that we can bring in the skills that we need. So Les has a HR background. I've got a more strategic planning and management background. If we need somebody for finance, we'll get somebody who's a specialist in finance. So we'll construct a team of the kind of people that you need for your engagement. And if, as we get into it, which happens with some frequency, that we need other people, we'll just bring them in, and that's part of the package. What ESC tries to do is make our engagements affordable, no matter what size your organization is. So we have a sliding scale, and we'll manage the cost, both in terms of dollar cost, but also resource cost. Right? Because if you're a small organization, you can't devote enough time. And so we'll supplement your staff to a greater extent so that you can get through the process. And I think the other point I wanted to make is that most ESC consultants have an operations background, so that we don't come up with plans that are elegant, but you can't execute. But we know what it takes to execute a plan. And so we take a very pragmatic approach to it. So this is one of my more favorite quotes, right? If you don't know where you are, where you're going, you can end up anywhere. And that's really the purpose of strategic planning. Where is it you're trying to go? How do you build consensus around that? And how do you make sure that the choices you make on a day-to-day basis end up being cumulative rather than sort of in many different directions? And so you have to have a clear idea of what's the beacon that you're going to be headed towards. Hopefully it's not the train entering the tunnel, but it's more the lighthouse or that's showing you where shore is, or whatever metaphor that you like. But the whole basis for strategic planning is where is it I'm trying to get to? And then that allows you to make day-to-day decisions as to how to get there. The other thing the process does is it allows you to get all your various constituents on the same page. Whereas without it, you might have one board member who's saying, gee, we ought to do X, and another board member who's saying, we ought to do the opposite of X. And so the process helps bring out alignment within the various constituents so that you can make choices. So one of the questions that you really start with is, how important are you to your community? And I don't know if any of you have ever asked that question, but you really want to know what your constituency is within your community. One way to test that is if you went away, would anybody care? And how many of them would care? Right? Because right now, most community access television is funded by the cable access fee. At some point, something's going to happen with the cable access fee. Can't tell you exactly what, other than something will happen. Mostly it'll get reduced. Might even go away. And so you need to start thinking about what would happen. And there's some interesting examples of what some community stations have done. For example, in Denver, the media access outlet there decided to focus on government. And so what they became is the go-to organization almost for the whole state of Colorado of doing town meetings, doing the state legislature, doing live broadcasts of those, and also archiving them so that people can pull them up from home. So now they became an integral part of government, and it would be very difficult for the cities and towns and the state for them to go away. So they become interwoven to the fabric of the community and are no longer as dependent on the cable access fee. Another example is in Dearborn, Michigan. There, the government had a derelict theater that was important to the community as an important resource. And they worked out an arrangement with the local media access to run the theater for them. And so they're now funded by the city government. And not only do they do media access, but they actually run this media center in the old theater that they've rehabbed. So that's another example of organizations that have thought about how do I become less dependent on the cable access fee? And will I have a life if that goes away? So those are some of the things that you might want to think about. Yeah?
Just a quick suggestion. If you ever want to know how valuable you are, schedule your selectmen or city council meeting and then don't show it. You'll get phone calls the next day.
Yep. Great thing. So that. So why do you need a strategic plan? Because after all, it's a lot of work. It's a great inconvenience. I think the first thing is you really build consensus amongst your constituents. I can't stress that enough. It's how do I get my board members, the public, my employees, all the people who have a say in what we do, how do I get them all thinking the same way? And what's nice, one of the things I think of is the critical part of this is getting everybody to understand the environment you're operating in to agree. Because after that, reasonable adults can disagree, but it's okay, because then you can make a choice and disagree, and you can move forward. And if somebody comes up with a suggestion, you can say, well, what in the environment is driving that? So you start having the basis for a conversation. A strategic plan not only tells you what you should do, it also tells you what you shouldn't do. Okay, so how do you decline doing something and be able to justify that to your various constituents? And so it gives you the basis for saying, look, we went through this planning process, this is what we decided we were going to do, and what you're suggesting is great, but it's not in this plan. We'll have to consider it for the next plan. So again, it allows you to be much more coherent. It's actually a great motivational tool, because in getting people to work on it, one becomes their plan, our plan, but you have a lot of proud parents, and it shows where you're trying to get to, and you build a lot of consensus around it, and so people become very motivated to say, yeah, that's what we're really trying to do. It identifies your priorities. Again, something really important, because at any given time, there's at least 50% more to do than you have capacity to do. Okay, some people think I gather 100% more, but it's certainly significant. And the question is, what is it you really need to do? And that leads me to my next point, which it separates the important from the urgent. And that's really important. So, we're all driven by the urgent. Somebody's knocking on your door, somebody's in your face, somebody called, some selectman asked you to do something, it goes on and on. What you really need to do is the important. Because you're better off doing the important and, apologizing for not doing the urgent. Because eventually the important is going to get you to where you need to get to. And so a strategic planning process will help you figure out what are the important things you really need to focus on, and helps you to concentrate more on that. And this is something organizations don't do enough of, in my opinion, which a good strategic planning process will give you milestones to allow you to celebrate success along the way. You don't have to wait to the end, but it's good to be able to have intermediate milestones of relatively short duration that you can say, boy, we did that, we can feel good about ourselves, we're making progress. And that's not only motivational for your staff, it actually feels good for you too. So you don't have to wait to the end. So what the strategic planning process will do, will answer some key questions for you. So the first one is, what do you want to be? What do you want to do when you grow up? In my case, I don't want to grow up, but that's a different conversation. But again, the process will get you to think about what is it you're really trying to do, where you're trying to get everybody on board with, yes, that's in fact what we want to do. The next one is, where are you now? And take a hard look at, where you think you are, how do you know you're really there? What do other people think about you? It's always the scary part when we do an external analysis and we ask the people from the outside, what do you think of you? And I hate to tell you this, but you usually don't get the answers you think you're going to get. But that's good to know, because you can deal with it. Once you know where you want to be and you know where you are, then the question is, how do you fill the gap? What are the steps you need to take to get from here to there? And then the next one is, so what do I do tomorrow? Because unless you know what you're going to do differently tomorrow, nothing's going to change. So, it's the old Chinese proverb, a trip of 10,000 miles starts with a single step. And so what's the step I need to take tomorrow that starts me on this journey? So it's not a plan that you dust off, but it's really a living document. Oh, by the way, we have this nice handout that Ulia over there has copies of that you can get later on. So, I put together this list of sort of what changes are on the horizon for cable access TV. The only thing I know about the list is it's wrong. The problem is I don't know how it's wrong. But everything I've read, even the Globe article that was yesterday, is that cable subscribers are unhappy about the size of their bill. And while I don't know this for a fact, there are a lot of people working on trying to solve that problem. Some in their garages, some in corporate settings. But, one experiment of a disruptive technology was Arrow. They ran into legal problems. But there's the next Arrow in somebody's garage. So, the question is, how do you deal with those things? The ones we know about, people cutting the cord, relatively small number now, but the question is that indicative of a trend? And I don't know, but it might be. And there's certainly a lot of pressure to do that, so that might be one. There's premium channeling unbundling, something that a few years ago you wouldn't have thought would happen, but so now people can be more a la carte than they used to be. Internet access keeps getting faster and faster and cheaper. And so again, that provides an opportunity for some kind of disruptive technology to change the dynamics of the industry. And since you're tied to the cable access fee, then this could be a serious problem. We talked about that. And clearly there's a lot more competition for the end user. So, we may not know exactly what the issues are, but there's a lot of pressure for change. And 5 years from now, while I can't tell you what will be different, I can tell you that your environment will be different in a significant way. Because there's just too much pressure for change. And that's really what a strategic plan will help you do, is figure out where do we want to be in the face of this kind of uncertainty, knowing that something's going to change and perhaps something's going to be very disruptive. So one thing to baseline yourself is, how is your revenue derived now? And this isn't an accounting exercise. You can do it on the back of an envelope. Because the difference between 80 and 85% is not going to change your decision. But if something's 50% or 75% of your revenue, that's probably material. So you need to do it in sort of big chunks. And then as you put on your crystal ball Mine's pretty cloudy, I don't know about yours. How might it change in the future? The way I deal with uncertainty is I use ranges. Well, it might go as low as this, but it might go as high as that. And that'll sort of give you a bracketing of where you might be. The other one is, are you putting money away to replenish and update your capital assets? And the role of depreciation is to put money aside so that you can rebuild yourself. And you're, unfortunately, in a capital-intensive business. It's a lot of expensive equipment, goes out of date pretty quickly. Unfortunately for you, the consumer or pro-consumer stuff has gotten very good, very inexpensive. And in many ways, that's your competition. Like people can do in their basement stuff that was unthinkable 5 years ago. And as things start changing, how will you fund your future capital needs? Where's the money going to come from? So the question is, are you prepared? So do you know how you will replace the decreased revenue? And do you have some concrete ideas of what are you going to do? What are you doing to get there? How big does it have to be? And you need to be very specific about this. How long will it take to develop replacement income? I don't know about you, but generally I take a stab at estimating that, and if I double it, I'm only off by 50%. But it always takes significantly longer than you think. So you have to take a realistic view of how long will it take to do something.
One of the things that I proposed contract negotiations is we want 1% of your internet monies that you're getting as a replacement of 1% of your TV. And gradually build that up so it's 50-50. We got laughed at, of course. But it's not a bad idea to put it out there. Because that's where it's going. It's going to the same zeros and ones over the same wires.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one thing you can do. But for that, you need to support your local government, because you also have the possibility of effectively a land grab by your local government. They see all this money going to you guys, and they say, wait a minute, taxes are really tight. We want to, outfit the high school or whatever. Why don't we take some of this cable access money, right? Because it's a new contract negotiation. We'll negotiate and take some of the money. So that goes back to what kind of support do you have, and how do you build support so your local government doesn't do those kinds of things or feel like it's important to them to support you. And so again, that's one of the questions you want to ask in your strategic planning process is, how do I make that happen? That's an important issue for you, which I suspect it might be. And then the other thing is, as you decide on how you build an alternative revenue stream, just as your point is, how do you build support for this? It's the WIFM, what's in it for me syndrome. So why would your constituents want to do this? And what do they get out of doing it? In the case of Denver, they get all the selectmen meetings live and archived. Well, if you're a politician, this is a pretty good deal. I get my name out. But it's something you really have to work your way through. And then how do you get the people who need to know to really feel it in their gut and believe that this is really important for them, that you get funded. This is a non-trivial challenge, but it's one if you don't, you may not be here. Gus?
Thanks, Neil. Good morning. I'm Les Goldstein. One of the things we talked a little bit about revenue. I'd love to hear from you about how many people are actually seeing revenue decreases from cable revenue? So nobody's seeing that yet. How many of you effectively have 100% of your revenue stream based on cable? Okay, it's an important topic, and I thought it might be going in here. I love the recommendation about the internet revenues.
Take legislation.
Yeah, but it's good to get the topic on the table, as you said. It's never going to pass the first time you bring it up, but it might pass by the 8th, 6th, 7th time. Why take on all this work? Obviously, Neil laid out a bunch of things that you have to do. I don't think there's anybody in this room that thinks they have extra bandwidth during the day. So one might say, why do we want to take this on? Hopefully Neil pointed out some things, but I'm going to try and summarize some of the important results. Ensures the organization's survival. I mean, effectively, if things are happening in the environment, it allows you to be proactive rather than reactive to those things happening, and allows you to actually respond to them, possibly and line your ducks up in order so that you can effectively respond to them and not have them be a catastrophe for the organization. It's effectively a roadmap. Think of it that way in going forward. I got a worker here. Helps keep diverse groups of constituents in alignment. I know Neil spoke about this. I'm going to mention some of the constituents I think you might be facing today. Customers, your users, the town, cable companies, certainly a constituent, sponsors. Some of you to various degrees have sponsors in the town and maybe providing money, donors, and clearly board members. An important piece of the strategic planning process is that the board members have to be aligned with you. They're probably, of all these things, I don't think you can go out for the other ones without having the board aligned. So they should really and effectively, in many ways, be part of the process and have to be. It provides a basis for measurement so you can celebrate progress and success. It's always important to keep score. How are we doing? This allows you to determine how you're doing as you're proceeding along the way. It's your scorecard. And finally, identifies unexpected results sooner. Any strategic plan is generally only as good as the assumptions you make on the plan. And I can guarantee you, because I've been involved in this process many times as running companies, some of them are going to be good assumptions and some of them are going to miss the mark by a great deal. So it allows you to measure what the assumptions you are and what's going on in the environment. A very simple example might be what I just said about, cable subscribers. Nobody's seeing any revenue decreases now, but I guarantee you from what Neil had brought up, is going to be impacts that are going to be competitive to your revenue stream over time. So having an ability to understand what you're going to do for alternative revenue streams is key to your survival and key to being healthy for the organization. So, any of you have any plans right now for what you would do if your cable revenue dropped by 30%? Okay. It seems like most of this audience could use at least, if not a full strategic plan, some strategic thinking about what you would do in that case. Because as Neil pointed out, alternate revenue streams always take longer than you think they're going to take to bear fruition. I've seen that. Sales are hard. And actually, you've got so many constituents, you can't control these constituents. You've got to bring them on board, and you better start early to bring them on board if this is going to happen. We had a great engagement with the new TV in this light, and a number of things that Bob Kelly has put in place is a way of looking at what we do. A strategic plan allows you to understand what's going on in the environment. What we don't know is how quick that cable revenue or subscribers will decrease. We do know it'll happen, but we don't know the rate. Will it fall off the table quickly, or will it decrease in a very nice, graceful way that allows you to respond or react? So doing a strategic plan allows you to plan for either situation. Most of the times things aren't graceful and pretty when they change. You may not be where you want to be now, but you are not where you want to be, where you used to be. So this is, again, the world is changing. No organization stays the same. The environment that you're working in changes, and you have to be in a position to react to it. So you know that things are different because they aren't the way they used to be. But you really, if you don't have a plan to follow, you really don't know what your response should be to those changes. Key to doing that. Again, the most important thing to take away from this, you're being reactive. You're being proactive rather than reactive. Okay. Why use outside help? How can they be helpful? What can they add to the process? This is a quote Neil and I like. A plan without action is a dream. Action without plan is chaos. So if you don't have a plan and you take action and you don't know what the results are going to be, you don't know whether it's going to get you there. You might get lucky. And you might happen to pick the right things without having thought them out beforehand because you're reacting. But chances are you're not going to be lucky because that's not the way life is. I'd be curious, a lot of you said that you've been involved in planning processes, which I was surprised at the number. And many of you said that you haven't succeeded in putting a strategic plan together. How many actually put a strategic plan together in another organization they were involved in? Okay, so you have been through a successful process. Anybody want to share any feelings they had about how the process went, what they thought was most important? Because we're giving you some senses of that, but some of you have the experience of actually having done it. Anybody?
I've faced a lot of pushback. So anytime I go through my plan, it was really, these guys were asking about the litigation. I was very unfamiliar with it. We had a couple plans to...
Who are these guys?
My board of directors.
Okay.
So at my past organization, that was the case. So a lot of it was pushed off. We don't know what the litigation of it is. We'd have to have a lawyer take a look at this. We're not sure if it's worth our time. So a lot of times I would push it off because I was unfamiliar as well as that.
Okay, was that a budgetary... I would give you two things that might help with that. Litigation... Okay. Repeat it, you got a mic now.
So we came up with a strategic plan to focus around staffing. My background is in staffing. We'd like to be able to put something together to have people be able to build skills and go out and create media as well. They wouldn't be coming in here to get rich, more or less these members would come in, they would develop skills, and we would send them out on shoots and they would be paid for their time. So we faced a lot of pushback by the board in regard to the litigation. They were unsure, can we do this? We're a non-profit organization, can we put people to work like this? So a lot of times when we would come to them with a plan, we'd get pushback. We're not really sure. We'd have to have a lawyer take a look at this, and then we're just basically done.
Let me ask one question. Were they pushing it off because it was a financial issue?
I want to say that they were pushing it off because maybe they felt as though it was a lot to chew at first. Maybe it was something that they didn't really feel like taking on. I think I may have been a little bit overexcited about it. Maybe that kind of pushed them away, being a young guy at the time. Yeah.
Okay, well, one of the things might be that, getting their attention might be that this is basically an alternate revenue stream you're looking at for bringing in more money, which I think is very creative and good. The issue that might have brought it home to them is you have to say, our current revenue stream, which keeps us healthy, is going to be decreasing over time because of environmental concerns. Cable cutting, people saying that cable bills are too large, will they find other ways through the internet? The interesting thing in that area is that many of you who have children like I do, my age, anybody under 35 thinks you're crazy to sign up for cable. They watch what they want to watch through the internet. And that's the generation and the generation below them, so that says the long-term prospects are that it's going to go down. If you put fear in them, fear is a great motivator. So if you put fear in them of your revenue stream, greater fear, they might want to take on the work because they see the organization not succeeding in the long run. So that would be a motivation.
I had a different experience. My board had a strategic plan committee, and
Strategic plan to what?
committee to meet together to create this strategic plan. After they met for a couple hours, they came back and said, "We decided you should create this strategic plan." And they told me a week before our board meeting to present one. So I did. And whether you can be the judge of whether it's a good one or not, but I handed it out, gave it to them, went through it, and they were fine with it. And so for me, it's like, okay, I'll use that, and I agree with you. It's something you reference, and I reference it to the staff as well to give direction. But I don't know that it's good or bad, to be honest, one. And then two, based on what he's talking about with the legality for an additional revenue stream, when I was at the regional in Hartford, we had the same discussion, and I know there was a gentleman, I don't know his name, but he was up north, probably in Maine, and he talked about all the different ways he was generating revenue. And there were a lot of questions about the legalities, and that's where I am, because at a former access center, we had a budget that was allocated for what we call production services. And we could contract and freelance people to actually do work for organizations or companies that were looking for services for marketing videos, etc. And that generated a good amount of revenue for that organization. But people were saying, well, we don't know if you can do that. So those are just 2 points I want to share and maybe you can address.
You know, one of the things that I don't know how detailed MassAccess gets into each one of your organizations or tries to bring coalitions together to work with issues. But one great coalition, because I think this is a question, and we saw that come up in some of the engagements we were involved in, is the legality of a non-for-profit having a revenue-generating piece. I don't want to use the word that piece is for-profit necessarily, but it certainly can cover expenses, and you might be able to position it in such a way that it's not necessarily for-profit. But that would be an engagement that it seems to me that many of you, while individually it's a very expensive undertaking, as a group with an industry focus, that might be a great project for the organization to help take on. Because if any organization that hasn't thought of this yet, you're going to be thinking about this over the next 2 years. I guarantee you.
Yes, I'd like to bring up the notion of, we put together a strategic plan in 2010. And one of the things, as you mentioned, is that your plan is only as good as your assumptions. And when you put together a plan, you deal with today's world and you make assumptions about what the future will bring. And what we did, and what we do is every 6 months, or certainly at least once a year, we revisit our strategic plan. Because I've seen so many, not so bad, other times where you put a strategic plan together, you put it in the file, and it sits there for 10 years until you decide to renew it. But we actually we cross-referenced our strategic plan in terms of specific objectives and action items, things we wanted to accomplish. And every so often we go back over and say, did we do it, did we not? What was the reason for the technology change? In our world, the world that we all live in, we operate in here, we're at the intersection of TV and communications and internet and all this communication technology. There's one area in this whole world that's changing faster than this. I don't know what it could be. So it's important to revisit and then reformulate your assumptions and take a look at it here and then reformulate it for the future.
Perfect. As a matter of fact, it's one of my later slides that talks about plan is dynamic. I think Neil mentioned it also. And that means you got to take it out and you got to look at it. When you said you were on time for all your things, were you on both milestone dates and were you on budget?
No, I didn't mean to say I was on time. I meant to say that we looked at what we had to do, and in a lot of cases we were not on time. And in a lot of cases, because of certain exigencies, certain things, like for instance, you might plan to replace certain equipment, but in the meantime, existing equipment breaks, so you have to change your priority. And when you have just a finite amount of revenue to spend on that, but then you change your priority. So some things I've had to push into the future, and others I've had to push back because things have changed. So I wish I could say that all of our things we do on time, but we don't.
What you experienced is real. That's real life.
Absolutely.
Over here, I think.
Just a clarification from the young gentleman had a problem with getting more staff. I'm sorry, more revenue from competing production services. I'm sorry. Was the problem that you had board members who were local providers of those services who didn't want competition?
No.
That's a legality that has to be addressed by MassAccess, I think, because I'm guessing that a lot of our board members, or some board members, are competitors of that production services.
Interesting issue. Yes.
An organization I worked for that serves people with disabilities went through strategic planning. Actually, it was my first time ever sitting through anything like that. What they recognized, and it's very similar to this, is that the bulk of their budget came from state of Massachusetts contracts. And this was about 15 years ago when there was a lot of like, oh my God, these contracts might go away. So instead of, hiding their heads in the sand, they all got together, their board, they spent an entire day, coming up with the basis of a strategic plan. One of the things they recognized immediately was they needed alternative revenue streams. And it was interesting because they, came up with some actions to take, and the first thing that they did failed miserably, like really badly. But they recognized it very quickly and got out, so backed off, and then went a different direction. And now their organization is celebrating their 40th anniversary this year. So it is important to, I think, make a plan, but also to realize you may fail miserably in some of the things you tried to do, but recognize that and quickly change course, still within the plan, and you can be successful.
Absolutely perfect, and a great proof point for the benefit of having those kinds of things. One of the outside help can be effective, allows one to see the forest from the trees. And sometimes you're so involved in the day-to-day, and this is in something like cable access, this cuts across all businesses, that the group within the organization can't necessarily see the forest from the trees, and it's hard to hit the issues. Having an outsider is very good at being able to get conversation going that might not have gone before that. Greater opportunity for objective insight. The outsider has no access. Okay? If they're a good facilitator and a good outsider, they're going to tell you what they think and not try and couch it in political terms. Okay? If you're going off course, if you guys aren't dealing with the issues, they'll be the person to put you back on, and that's a very valuable benefit to the process. Consistent with that is it facilitates the process. Most people doing this, I'll give you an example. We did a thing with one of our clients where we took everybody out of the office. We spent a Saturday. The organization got a room at one of the local colleges, and we spent the entire day on a Saturday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and basically had the management team, people within the organization, and some members of the board. And we actually started and dealt with some of the issues that were being suggested as ways. Revenue, this was dealing with alternate revenue and some other things, but we basically broke up into teams and people actually explored, do these ideas make sense, what would they cost, etc. So it put a little more in depth and it got everybody vested. And getting the board vested with you as a management team is key to success in this because everybody has to own it going forward. And finally, supplement internal resources. I know Neil mentioned that many of you, and we talked about this before, there's no extra bandwidth in this room, and I understand that. But having an outsider can help take on some of the work and some of the thinking and can cut down the amount of time that individuals have to spend. I will say there's one other thing that makes it succeed, and that is the top of the organization, the executive director and the chairman of the board have to be vested in and make it important to the organization that a plan has to be developed. I know a lot of you started plans, they weren't done, and I would have to say that's because nobody said it has to be done and was the driver of it. Nothing gets done unless there's an internal advocate that makes sure it gets done. By the way, I like the interaction before, so any questions that you have, just pop up, because nobody saves questions till the end. I know that as being an audience. Yes?
So I have multiple plans, like a marketing plan, a capital plan, budget, there's plans all over the place. So does a strategic plan kind of marry all of those together? And is it just like they all need to be their own little monsters on their own?
Yeah, I would contend that the plans that you have are really business operational plans. In other words, you make a plan every year. You look at it during the year, you try and determine how you're doing, but the length of time is generally a year. Everybody sits down and it's usually part of the budgeting process in some form or another. What this does is a strategic plan, and maybe we should, I'm not sure we said that actually, should look out 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of disagreement about that. I happen to be one of those people that says 3 years is hard enough to project. 5 years gets a little crazy, but a lot of organizations want to do a 5-year. But you can really generally be more accurate on the 3-year with your assumptions and so on. So, yes, they're all important ingredients to it, but none of them represents what a strategic plan would be. It's much more tactical.
What I would say is that what you're describing are the tactics that go to fulfill the strategic plan. So the strategic plan will lay out some goals, and then your marketing plan and your business plan, or what are you going to do this year that are going to help you get to those goals.
Can we make copies, can attendees get copies of these slides? Because we're fine with letting those copies out from the organization.
Sure, we can make
I
them
notice a lot of
available.
people taking screenshots at various times and doing that. Kick back, don't take any shots, you can get the slides, good to take notes, but we'll try and get you the slides because we're fine with distributing these. Building your tactical plan. So you set up this strategic plan, and there was a chart that Neil went through which basically said, what do you want to do? Most important thing is saying, sort of, what are your objectives and where do you want to be? So that's your long-term goals. That's that 3 to 5 year vision. Next would be to establish the priorities within that vision. You might have a number of things that you want to hit, but some things are more urgent, as we pointed out, and others are important. Nothing's not important. I understand that. If you made that list, it's going to be important. But if you got to throw something overboard, you should have an idea what you want to throw overboard. And then interim goals. There's interim goals are goals that you have to meet along the way in order to achieve the end game. Many times, how many people have ever been involved in project management? Projects. And if you've ever been a project manager, that was my first real serious job. It's a great skill set because it allows you to identify, maybe you've heard the term critical path. So you determine what things are absolutely necessary to meet the end game. And those are the ones that usually have a red line on them that basically say, if you don't achieve these, you're not going to get the end result. You have no chance. Or at a minimum, it'll be stretched out much longer. And then finally, the actual action plans, which are tactical plans that you need to achieve your goal. Now, I don't want to violate the rules here. This was supposed to go to about 10:50. We were going to take a break, I thought, or is that not the case?
Yes, no,
Okay. Why don't we, I hate to stand between people and break, so why don't we take a break for 5 minutes? Is that, or 10 minutes? There was a 10-minute break? Or
I think
is
it's
that,
10 minutes.
Okay, 10-minute break. We'll come back here. I hope you're still interested. Great. See you in 10 minutes.